Okay, so today we're basically just going to be making a coffee machine on Blender. So first of all, we start with a plane. Just going to resize that. This is just going to be like my surface. Then we go ahead, we get another plane, so that's using Shift A. And then we just resize this. So, you can resize this using the tools on the left. And as you can see, I'm just sort of playing about with it right now. So yeah, then I go into edit mode and I'm gonna add loop cuts. So as you can see, I'm gonna add 4 loop cuts. Once I'm done with the loop cuts, I click on faces and I highlight all these faces in the middle. And then I essentially extrude them. And then I isolate this, so I clear that plane out of sight. So we have just this object here that we're working with. Okay, so yeah, now we have that object there. And basically what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna select this face at the bottom. I'm gonna move that up a little bit. By the way, this is in edit mode, and I'm just gonna scale it up a little bit as well. But as you can see, it made those edges kind of come out a little bit, so I'm gonna select those edges and bring them in. So I do that for both sides. This is kind of like the bottom of the coffee machine. I don't know why I pause here, but probably just thinking what to do next. But yeah, I just select these faces at the bottom and I essentially, oh, look at me struggling to select them. But I'm going to select them and I'm just going to bring it down a little bit. But yeah, then I'm going to select these edges, as you can see. And I'm just going to scale it down a little bit just to kind of get the shape that I want. And as you can see, that's our plane that this was sitting on, and I just kind of adjust it so it's sitting like directly on top of this plane. And then as you can see, I am back in edit mode now. And I'm just selecting these faces. I'm selecting these ones at the front and at the back. Okay, turns out I deselected it, but yeah, I just basically select those same exact faces again. And I used to kind of invert it inside, and then I use extrude to extrude it, the extrude tool to move it inside a little bit once I have inverted it. So you can use I in the keyboard to do that and then click extrude on the left. And this kind of just gives it a bit more shape. Now, as you can see, I have another plane. And I need to fit this plane at the top. So if you see the tools that I use, this kind of snaps it into place. So I'll go to snap and I'll click on edge. And that will kind of help this plane at the top snap onto the object that we already have, because I want it to fit exactly around the area. And you just see me kind of trying to snap it in place now, basically. As you can see, it kind of sticks to the edge. Seems like I'm struggling a little bit, but yeah, it basically brings itself to the edge of the object. So yeah, that's kind of perfect. And then just need to do the other side. I then added a loop cut to the back of it and extruded that. Don't know why it skipped a little bit, but yeah, I added a loop cut and extruded the region at the back. And then I've added another loop cut. So just kind of, not exactly in the middle, but just maybe 3/4 of the way. And then I extrude that front face forward a little bit. So you can just kind of see me messing about, trying to get it exactly how I want it. And then we select that face in the middle. So yeah, but we always need to make sure we're selecting the correct object in object mode before we go into edit mode. So that's what I've done. And I've isolated that face. And then I press I to invert it in a little bit. And once I've inverted it, I extrude it downwards, added some loop cuts, which kind of skipped a little bit, but I added the loop cuts. And now I've selected all the loop cuts and beveled them. After I've beveled them, like you can see me trying to play around with it right now, I then extruded it upwards a little bit. This to kind of create that bottom part of the, the coffee machine. I then select that face that you can see there. I press I to invert it again, and I extrude it. I'd go ahead and extrude it inwards a little bit. I then yeah, also isolate that face as well. I then select these faces at the top that you see here that kind of go all the way around. And I also isolate those faces as well, so you can see how I did that there. Just kind of separates my object into pieces to kind of work with. Oh, don't know what happened there. As you can see, I scale that a little bit to make that a bit bigger. And then I select these faces at the top and I scale them to, just to make it a bit bigger again. Again, it's just adding shape, to the object. And then I extrude that inwards a little bit. So yeah, we kind of select those areas on each side, the one that you can see in the video. Then we invert it again, and we essentially move that inwards. Then we create a loop cut, so 6 in the middle of the section that you can see here. And as you can see, I use I to bring it inwards. That's getting a little bit messed up, but yeah, we just use I'm trying to bring it inwards. I don't think it was exactly doing what I wanted it to do, so I kind of had to do it individually. So that's what I ended up kind of doing. So yeah, as you can see, I kind of just ended up trying to do it individually. Approximately, you know, the same for each one. And then I select all these faces, I extrude them, so I extrude them inwards a little bit. So with this section is basically where I create the button. I didn't record it fully, but essentially what I did was I got mesh A, I got a circle, I used the fill tool to fill that up, and then I extruded that. Once I extruded that, I used I to invert, and then I extruded it inwards. And that is sort of the result that I get. And then I use B to bevel that outer edge. As you can see, I kind of did it at the back of the coffee machine by mistake, but that's how you can see it looks, how the button looks. But you'll very soon see me, you know, fix that, and I put that at the front of the machine. So yeah, I kind of skipped through that, but I added the buttons, like I said, all at the front. I basically just duplicated it. So I created it, I duplicated it all at the front, and then I duplicated some at the side. As you can see, I now got a mesh and I got another circle, and you can see me kind of position that here to kind of create the part where the coffee, you know, comes out of. I fill that, and then I extrude it again, so downwards. And then yeah, you could just see me kind of messing around with that. And then I scale inwards, extrude that again, and scale that again. And I'm just going to sort of keep going. Until I, you know, get the kind of shape that I want, essentially. As you can see, I've moved that a little bit inwards. And what I'm doing is I'm just trying to select those faces on the outer edge. I'm sure there's a quicker way to do this, but it's just how I do it. And then I essentially bevel it. So not bevel it that much, but you know, just bevel it a little bit. Now I am gonna sort of create a handle. So I went Shift A and I basically got a cylinder, and this is just me sort of playing around and trying to create a shape that is close to it. So essentially you will just see me do that. So yeah, you can just kind of see me try to position it in place so it's kind of in the center. Now I'm just gonna go in edit mode and I'm just gonna add like a little bit of shape to it basically, and this is just by using loop cuts and the scale tool. So yeah, you can just see me use loop cuts to try to give it some shape, kind of make it look like a handle essentially is what my goal is here. I also, whoops, didn't mean to do that, but I also do try to use extrude to bring it out a little bit. But yeah, it's just a case of kind of playing around and creating the shape that kind of looks, you know, to how you want it to be. So yeah, that is sort of my finished shape. Looks about okay, I guess. I just wanted to, you know, try to create something that's a little bit like a handle. But basically, now what I'm going to do is join these two objects together. So as you can see, just sort of right click, press join, and that links both of those objects together. I then essentially want to duplicate it and put it on the other side. And then what I do is try to position that, and I just want to rotate it to make it look a little bit, just a little bit different. So you can kind of just see me rotating it a little bit. But yeah, once that section is done, Shift A, I get another circle. I position it in between, just sort of in the middle. I then essentially gonna fill that circle and I'm gonna extrude it downwards. And you'll just see me try to sort of create this little shape. So, you know, I extrude that. And then I'm gonna essentially extrude it again and scale it. And I'm just gonna keep doing that as I work down. So yeah, then I just extrude that downwards. This will be where, obviously, where the coffee comes out of. I then go inwards a little bit on this part. You can go inwards fully, but I just did it a little bit. I then went into object mode and try to position it correctly so it's in the center. I then went to add a modifier and I added bevel, and you can just see me kind of playing around with, you know, this section here. So essentially I just added more segments. For this one, I don't know why I put 0. I was meant to go up a little bit, but you can see me adjust that in a second. So yeah, I just went up to around 2 point something. And then I also shade it smooth, and I also make sure you apply that modifier. And essentially that's about it. That is the coffee machine, obviously without any textures. But yeah, that is the completed coffee machine. Thank you for watching.